Scooter Morris. I've been working with Scooter for 7 years on the Conference Management Committee of SIGCHI, and I can tell you one thing, he's the most dependable human I've ever met. He's really good at detection, recovery, and forecasting of failure and faults that can occur in a conference. Above that, I would say that, in short, he's the Executive Director of the Resource for Biocomputing, Visualization, and Informatics at UCSF. He's been for 30 years in SIGCHI Conference Management and Organization. He's the Vice President for conferences at SIGCHI, and he survived with the biggest failure ever, which is to get the Lifetime Service Award in 2005, and he's still there. Please join me and welcome Scooter.
This is Scooter. I'm off radio. All right. Ooh, it works. Cool. Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for coming here on such a rainy morning. When I was first asked to do this, I said no. And when they asked me again, I still said no. And then they cornered me on the street, and Matt said, no, we actually really want you to do this. And I said, okay, fine, what do you want me to do? And they told me the kind of title of the talk. And then I saw this: Provoke Wisdom Impact. So I want to know, am I supposed to provoke you and impart wisdom and somehow impact you all in 15 or 20 minutes? Or is this an or clause and I get to decide which one I'm going to do? Or is it because since I'm the middle, am I just supposed to somehow impart wisdom? The guy named Scooter, running around with the walkie-talkie, is now going to stand up here and impart wisdom. No, not going to happen. So what I decided to do instead is tell you some stories, a little bit, not too many, give you some data, lots of graphs, but not too many, and then give you some challenges, where we're going and what some of our challenges are moving forward. So I've subtitled the talk, An Outsider's View from the Inside of SIGCHI. So, why? That's a strange title. Most of you who know me, and I see lots of familiar faces out there, would consider me almost the ultimate insider, right? So I am the Vice President for Conferences. I've been volunteering at SIGCHI since 1985. I think I have been on more SIGCHI conference committees than anybody ever. However, I have never published a paper at SIGCHI. I have never submitted a paper to be published at SIGCHI. I have given one tutorial, and I organized one panel. That's my contribution. So I am sort of, in many ways, the ubiquitous outsider. If you think about who the inside people are, I'm not one of them. My day job is that. I write code for a living. And for those of you who don't recognize, that's Java. And even worse, I use VI as my IDE for all of you old-timers. So, and the goal of my day job is to help scientists understand things like that. That's a yeast protein-protein interaction network. And to help them make sense out of that. And for those who don't recognize, and Tom Hewitt, wherever you are, that is HIV. So that's an electron micrograph of HIV. Both of these are from software that my lab and the folks that I work with deal with on a daily basis, working with scientists. So how did I get here? Why am I here? If that's my day job, why am I doing all of the things that I'm doing? Well, we need to go back, way back to 1985. 1985 was it turned out, in hindsight, it was sort of a really special year. Not because of SIGCHI. Actually, that's my son. 1985, my son was born. In 1985, I started a 19-year career in the pharmaceutical industry. If you really want to talk about outsiders of Chi, we can talk about pharma. And in 1985, I volunteered for the first time at a Chi conference. Interesting, I was looking at all the pictures. Notice everybody is wearing a tie. It was really different back then. So I've been active since 1985, and the real question that people ask me, and I assume why Philippe and Matt asked me to be up here, is why? Why have I been doing this for so many years? So what I'd like to do is tell you a little bit about why, and then we'll get into sort of, charts and graphs and things like that. So the why is community. So the real question here is, for me, when I entered Chi for the first time, what did community look like? So it looked like Austin Henderson. So I was the AV guy, young graduate student, pulled in, never heard of Chi, never knew what HCI was, and Austin was the conference chair. And he said, great, come on board. And he treated me like I was part of a team. Yes, that is Susan. It's Susan Dre and Sarah Bly, who, despite all of the AV problems we had in 1985, and we had many, there was no AV company. I was the AV chair, and we had overhead projectors and slide projectors breaking everywhere during that conference. Yes, that's all we had were overhead projectors and slide projectors. They were supportive. They did what they could to help out, and at the end, at the closing dinner, they gave me this very special award, an award that I remember. I got the You Light Up My Life award from Susan and Sarah. And it was people like Ben. Yes, that actually is Ben Schneiderman with the dark beard. It was people like Ben who, even though I was really, honestly, a nobody in the community at that point, he was having a special, I can't remember if it was a book signing or a press release or something like that, but I was invited. And that impacted me in a really, really major way. I looked around at all the people around me, and what I saw is a community of people who were really focused on computing, but only within the context of people. And the people were the first thing. And I felt really at home there. I felt home because of the people that were around me and the way that I was treated. And I felt home because of the field. It seemed like a nice match for me. So, I'm still here. That's why I'm engaged in this community. So what I'd like to do now is sort of transition and take this insider view and talk about the history. Okay, everybody be ready. Charts and graph time. So we started in Gaithersburg. That's the yellow dot. That was not a Chi conference. Everybody says the first Chi conference was in 1982. That is not correct. The first Chi conference was actually in 1983 in Boston. The Gaithersburg workshop, which kicked everything off, and we all look at that from our heritage, was a workshop that was supposed to draw, I think Ben mentioned, 400 or 500 people. That was what they had planned for. And when 900 people showed up, they realized that there was something going on here. Okay? So here's the attendance graph. 1992 was a very special year. I stopped the graph there. That was the year I chaired the conference. I actually stopped the graph there because of what happened after. As you see, we're moving around the United States. And what happened in 1992, well, actually before then, is the executive committee realized that there was really good HCI going on in other parts of the world. So in 1992, we moved and we had our first European conference. And as we go through, you see that because of the success of that conference, we started fitting Europe into our regular pattern. Not quite as common, but still North American-centric. But we're looking at it. We're continuing to look for other regions, and I'll get into that in particular later. So in 2006, as we continued to have pressure on the conference in terms of venue size and things that we could do, we made another change. Up until that point, the conference was a 5-day conference. The first 2 days were workshops and what we called then tutorials. And in 2006, we made a change, and we went to a 4-day conference, and we brought the tutorials into the conference, and it became our courses. And so that was the first conference there, and you can see, as these curves go, the continued growth. You kind of plot that line through there. So that's what we look like in 2014. Oh, and Philippe didn't announce this. I can also say, is it okay? Okay. I can also say that we have now broken 3,000 attendees here in Toronto. Well done. So, a lot of history up there, right? If you look at those curves up and down, we could talk about some of the downs, how 9/11 affected us. What I find is interesting is how the huge worldwide economic downturn seemed to not affect us at all. Look at, it's flat in there, but it's not down. So our field continues to grow, and the conference series continues to grow. So, what are our main successes? Well, the first thing you have to recognize is the main success of CHI is, in fact, the fact that we are the premier publication venue. And there is the curve that everybody shows, submissions versus acceptances, and all of the academics in the audience are saying, wait a minute, that's not really a good metric of quality. And I agree. So I plotted this curve. Sorry, 2014 does not yet have any citations. This is the same curve, except I've added the citations for each year. This is amazing. Look at it for a second. 21.5 citations per CHI paper over the history. By any metric, in my field, in bioinformatics, this would be fantastic to get 21 citations for every paper that I publish. So I've got to say, this is our primary, let's just be, first and foremost, the success of the technical program is the primary success of CHI. However, we have also adopted new subdisciplines. As a community, we've grown, we've changed. Design is now part of our, and I can say this as a biologist, it's part of our DNA. It's part of who we are now as HCI. A number of other subdisciplines, games. We have a student game competition where 10 years ago we would have been asking why, but now it's part of who we are. We've continued to focus on international. It's not just North America. It's not just the United States, as we stand here in Canada. It's not even just Europe. So we have to spread and continue to focus on HCI throughout the world. We have to say that interactivity is a success. From the standpoint of the logistics team, and I'll mention logistics in a minute, it is a challenge, but there is no question that the vibrancy that being able to put your hands on new technology and see that new technology as it's just coming out, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, is stupendous. It really adds a lot to our conference. PCS is sort of an internal system. I don't know if people know about it, but it is the system that all of our submissions and all of our acceptances go through, and it's grown with us over the years, and I would have to credit that as a fairly major success. But that's not all. We have a bunch of operational successes. The 4-day format, which I'll have to say publicly, I had a lot of doubts about, but it has been, I think, a major success. It has allowed us to do things that we were just not able to do before. We have been very carefully managing the balance of our professional staff and the volunteers for running and managing the conference. And that seems simple, but it turns out to be really difficult to strike exactly the right balance. If you have too many professional staff, it becomes a professionally run conference. If you have too many volunteers, you wind up burning people out, and you don't have a good feel for the attendee. And I think we've hit a good balance for right now. The conference series has also been very well managed financially, largely due to help from ACM, due to support from the executive committee of SIGCHI. We've been able to make sure that we are in the position where we can now take risks. And I'll tell you, going to Asia, taking this whole conference series to Asia is a risk, but we're prepared to do that. And we're in the position where we can do that. All right, what about our failures? Nah, not going there. Sorry, it's too early in the morning. Maybe you can corner me and you can have a beer and I can have a Coke and we can talk about those. But I do want to mention one thing that I think we could do a lot better with. And that is, how are we reaching out to the practitioner community? If there's one thing that I look across CHI, it's that I don't think the practitioner community is really well represented, and we need to do something with that. So we'll be coming back to that in a second. Then again, there was that one plenary. Nah, I won't go there. So let me tell you a little bit about the planning process. So this is what happens. This is how we put together a conference. The site was selected in 2009. Okay, think about that. Here we are in 2014. The site was selected 5 years ago. The chairs were selected in winter of 2010. We had a number of talks about what they wanted to do, their theme. The technical program chairs came on in early 2011. Okay? The planning began in earnest after that. So the volunteers have been working very hard on the conference for 3 years to put together this amazing thing. This is the numbers they've been dealing with. That is the CHI budget that was approved by the ACM Executive Committee. All of the details are there. Okay? If you want to know what we spend our money on, it's public. I'm happy to tell you. There's no secrets here. There's also the logistics team. Behind all of this is an army. A lot of people, I've had a lot of people introduce me this week in particular and say, this is Scooter. He's the guy that makes sure that CHI runs. Bollocks. The CLC team. They've been on board from the start. CLC has been with us since 1992. Actually, they started in 91, but they were in full force in 92. The AV crew, they're really the ones that fix things when it breaks. I just call them. Registration. Yvonne and her team make registration smooth for you. Believe me, we had a volunteer registrar who worked really, really hard in 92 and almost sunk us because we had bad data. So having a great registration vendor is critical. Carol Cliver, who does our sponsorship and exhibits, and Rosemary, who does our publicity. And by the way, there was a television piece on CHI last night in the local area. Ashley Cozy. Now, I took pictures of Ashley last night, and they were gone from my camera. And I found out that Ashley has a public Facebook page. Let's just say I was very kind when I selected the picture. So Ashley is our ACM representative. We partner with ACM like we never have before. It's a fantastic partnership, and it allows us to do things that we couldn't do otherwise. And of course, my team, who do all the video and run around and help make sure things work, and the student volunteers. All of them. 175 student volunteers from 30 countries. That's amazing. That's the next generation, and they're here, and they are so enthusiastic and so happy to be here. Behind all of that are literally hundreds of people that are doing setup in the wee hours of the morning to get all these chairs set, to build this stage, all of that kind of stuff. There's this huge workforce that comes in to put on Chi. All right, what's next? The easy stuff. Where are we going? San Jose, Seoul in Korea. I skipped right over I don't know why. So hopefully you're all going to join us in Seoul. Seoul's going to be amazing. I don't want to steal their thunder, but the Seoul, where we're going to be, is right down in Gangnam, as in, yes, that Gangnam. And it's a beautiful part of the city. Then San Jose, Denver, and then we're about ready to go out to bid. Europe is definitely, we have a series of European cities. Maybe eventually we'll even get back to the East Coast again. I don't know. There's some people at University of Maryland that would like to see us somewhere close by. And after that, if Seoul's a success, we have to go back to Asia. I mean, this is just, we have to fit that into our operational style and figure out how to make that work. We need to embrace HCI in practice better. And one of the things we're going to be doing, and we've started it this year, is we're going to have a course curriculum that you're going to see over the course of many Chis. So it will be something that you can count on, and you can take essentially, we're not going to call it a certificate yet, but fundamentally, it's a whole series of courses that will give you the fundamentals of HCI. We need to be accessible to all of our community. And I think one of the things that you've seen in the chairs of Chi 2014 and their team have done is they've really brought up our accessibility, both physical and digital accessibility. We need to embrace other communities, and that includes various sub-disciplines. One of the things that we're going to be doing next year that you're going to be seeing is a little bit of first steps into bringing in digital interactive arts into the conference series. And who was that back there? And we need to be bringing in HCI from other regions. And there's already been some workshops held in Latin America, and we'll hopefully be telling you more about that. And we need to solve this problem, growth. So there are those curves plotted on top of each other. Okay? If you look at that, that's a really steep curve, both of those, the submissions and the attendance. So a lot of people have been telling me, don't worry, it's going to flatten out. It may, certainly possible, but what I see right now is more and more computation in our lives. Here, and even in the developing world, we're seeing more and more access to technology. I think that this is not going to flatten out, at least for a while, because I think interacting with technology is going to be a key part of what the human state is about for some time. And I'm sorry to say, a lot of the technology that we get our hands on right now is broken. It doesn't integrate well, and it's not usable. So we are important, and I think increasingly the broader community is going to figure that out. Okay, so how are we going to get there? One, we need everybody to step up. That growth curve is scary. So if you are part of this community, we need you to be reviewing papers. We need you to be brainstorming about how we're going to have globally diverse PC meetings. We need you to volunteer in various logistics areas. I'd like to see every Chi volunteer and attendee have the experience that I had when I first started. I want to see them part of the community. This week, people have been telling me they love Chi. That's amazing. That's fantastic to see that. Okay, so I'm going to finish up there. I'm not sure if that's what Matt and Philippe had in mind, but that's what you got. But I want to finish up with one more slide. I want to finish up with a gratuitous slide of my new granddaughter. And with that, I'll say thanks.